So this is a video I've wanted to do for a while now, talking about switching careers, because it's something I've personally gone through a couple of times. But when I made the big career switch, I had a little bit of trouble getting to it because A, I was kind of lazy about it, to be honest. B, I was intimidated. And C, I just didn't know where to start. And it seemed like at the time, my skill set wasn't anywhere close to where I wanted to be. And I knew I wanted to make a lot more money. I knew I wanted to be around people who had been in the field for a while, who were super professional. And I knew I wanted to have certain company names on my resume. So I had to make that jump, which meant I'm going to have to take a little bit of a pay cut to get started to switch into tech, which is what I did. But tech is such a broad term, right? Because tech can mean a lot of things. So just because I say I've worked in tech, that doesn't mean that I was an engineer or developer or anything like that. It was actually customer success. And I just happened to work for tech companies. So that's what I mean by tech. When you look at different job titles, there are so many subcategories under a lot of those titles. Like engineer is so general. So when someone says, I want to be an engineer, that's not enough. It's like, okay, well, what kind of engineer do you want to be? So that's one thing to think about too, that I didn't even think about when I put out the short. But if you're thinking, okay, I want to be an engineer, start thinking about what kind of engineer you want to be. All right, let's dig in. So with that being said, you want to ask yourself why you even want to make a switch in the first place. Is it because you hate your manager? Is it because you hate your job? Do you hate your company? Or do you love all of those things and you simply want to just make more money? Or you want health insurance? Or you want a job that allows you to be able to travel around the world? Whatever the case may be, make sure that you understand first why you want to make the switch because that will determine where you go from there. So take some time with this. Take at least a month, I'd say 3, to think about what career field you want to be in. And the reason why I say take some time is because you don't want to end up in the wrong field, and that does happen. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I have. But when people talk about switching careers, they make it seem so easy and so quick. Like they made the decision and then all of a sudden they've switched careers. But the reality of it is it's not really like that. It takes time, it takes a lot of research, a lot of questions need to be answered. And depending on how extreme the switch is, it takes money. So, like I mentioned before about me switching to tech, before that, I was a recruiter. I still recruit as well, but I was a recruiter full time every single day. Nonetheless, I was a recruiter during the day. I worked at a restaurant at night so that I could pay off debt and save up some money. So that's part of the reason as well why it took some time because I didn't have time. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to switch, but I didn't have time to make that step because I was just so busy trying to work, trying to save money and pay off debt. So since I didn't have an extensive tech background already, I had to think about different ways I could shimmy my way into a company so that I could get a foot in the door and then at least be in the tech company and work from there. So then I'd be making more money. So if I needed to go to school, if I needed to get a certification, I could. Just so happens that the company I worked for, they did pay for a lot of certifications. I didn't end up getting any because some of those subfields I wasn't interested in. It turns out I was more interested in just working for a tech company than I was having an actual tech background. I didn't realize that until I worked for the tech company. Now, look, there are plenty of career tests you can take online. I, I personally don't think they do much for you. I think once you do your research and at the end of the day, you know who you are, right? So if you do your research, you see a field, it looks right, it feels right, then you can start to dig into it more. If you really think you need a career test, take it. It certainly doesn't hurt anything, but don't lean so heavily on the result. So I'll give you an example. I enjoy working with people. However, I can be a little impatient. That's what I mean by you really have to understand yourself while you're searching for your next career move. So since I know I'm a little impatient, I knew that being a pediatric nurse or a hospice nurse out in the field probably wasn't the best idea because I'm impatient. For someone who has more patience, who loves working with people, who's not afraid of needles, who's okay with working long hours, holidays, going to work regardless of weather, things like that, those types of fields can be very rewarding. The good thing about the medical field is that it's a pretty solid career field that looks like it's going to be around for quite some time. The point I'm trying to make is I highly suggest you double check with someone. Make sure it's someone you trust and whose opinion you value, because they'll ask you questions that you haven't even thought of, and they'll be able to tell you things about yourself that you didn't even realize. An outside perspective is tough to hear sometimes, but necessary. So again, start thinking about what you want. Do you want work-life balance? Do you want to work for a growing company like a startup? Do you want a job that has more of a positive impact on society? Start answering those questions, then it's time to work on getting into the field. Number two, measure how extreme of a career switch you're trying to make. If you're an HR generalist and you want to be a data analyst, you can probably weasel your way into the field because you'll have a decent amount of transferable skills. But if you're a customer service rep and you want to be a software engineer, we'll need to dig into that a little bit more and it's going to take more work. But it's not impossible. You just have to understand how extreme of a switch you're trying to make. I worked with a cloud engineer once who didn't even go to college. He just worked his way up. So it can happen. In the example today, we're going to look at an extreme career switch because I feel like that's where most people are right now. And just based on my experience and research, especially in this job market, people are looking to make extreme career switches. So we're going to look at the job description for a customer service rep. Now, this isn't the job we're trying to get. This is the job that we have. So we're going to pretend we're this customer service rep. We work at Home Depot. We live in the Bronx in New York. We make $20 an hour. We want to be a software engineer, right? So this is an extreme career switch. We're going to look at a job description for a software engineer for Grammarly in Manhattan, and it's a hybrid role. By the way, I had to dodge a few sketchy job postings to get these. Not many, but a few. And I'm noticing that that a lot of them are popping up again. I started noticing that last year. So maybe I'll do a video on how to avoid spam companies, resume mills, etc. I think I will. Anyway, let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Okay, so as you can see, here are the two job descriptions. One is the customer service sales representative, which is what we're doing right now. So like I said, you can see we're in the Bronx, customer service. We like our benefits, great, um, but we don't make enough money to really contribute to any 401k or the employee stock purchase program or anything like that because this is the pay range. But since we've been there for a couple of months and our boss really likes us, we make 2050 now. So we're at the top of the pay range. But I just wanted to give you kind of an idea of what it looks like here. So they have benefits, like I said, 401k, tuition reimbursement, things like that. And so we like the company, we like our coworkers, and all of those things are great. But now we're ready to make a career switch. We want to become an engineer. The first thing we want to think about are transferable skills. What do we know already, just based on our experience? Maybe we've worked other customer service jobs before. And so, we're familiar with that world, and we at least want to be able to use some of those skills once we become a software engineer. So let's talk about some of those skills that a customer service rep has to have. You need to be empathetic, a problem solver, some technical knowledge. So you could talk about what software you're using at work to do your job. How do you resolve an issue through research? Have you been able to fix any piece of a platform or a machine successfully? Think about some of those things when it comes to tech. You also must be an active listener. You must be adaptable and good at resolving conflict. So that's that piece. Those are what I would consider soft skills for the most part. Even the technical piece, just because we know that a customer service and sales position at this level isn't super technical. So most of your skills are going to be soft skills, which is totally fine. That's still a skill. So I'll let you look up the hard and soft skills for a software engineer because it's a longer list, but it's important to know what those skills are just so you have an idea of the general skills of a software engineer. But there are different types of software engineers, as you'll learn while you go through your research. So I won't read all the hard and soft skills to you, but if you just Google hard and soft skills of a software engineer, you'll see a list of things that pop up. Now, before we dig into this, something I want to talk about is qualifications, and I'm going to break this down in detail in another video. But look, you don't necessarily need to meet every job qualification to get a job. Even in this job market, if someone meets every qualification, they probably cost more than the company wants to pay. I've been in back and forths with many companies who have champagne taste on a natty light budget, and I have to state my case as to why they need to compromise a bit based on the salary I know they really want to offer. So this is a good example of a position where Grammarly is looking for a software engineer. This is a good example of a job description that I picked because A, Grammarly is a legit company. I pulled this job posting off their website. And B, they make it very clear what they're looking for in the description. So what I like about this job posting is they make it very clear throughout the description what they're looking for. They mention Swift, AppKit, and Core Graphics over and over again throughout the description, throughout the qualifications, so on and so forth, which I like because it tells me what's most important. So going back to qualifications, every single person is not going to have every qualification checked off. If you do have every qualification checked off, then you're probably overqualified and it's time for you to start applying for higher level positions. You'll see though in the qualifications, you'll see some soft skills in here as well, which you already have from your previous work experience. If you have no work experience, talk about a project from university, if you went to university, or any sort of previous project or any experience you've worked on in the past, even if it was a contract position, whatever it was, anything helps. Talk about it in detail and provide a solid story. The reason why I like this particular description, it is in New York City, and they do have to put a reasonable salary range, which I love. So it gives you a realistic idea of what you're going to be getting paid. You don't have to worry about guessing. And then when you go to apply for the job, you'll be able to put your LinkedIn profile, a cover letter, your resume, a website where you can showcase your skills or any projects that you've done in the past. And then they ask again about programming language right here. So they ask you how many years of experience you have. They're asking you exactly what you're looking for. It helps to look at these job descriptions and keep up on them so that you understand what's current and what people are actually looking for so that when you go to start looking into which courses you want to take, you'll know you're headed in the right direction. Now, before we move on, let's say you don't have a degree because you haven't been able to come up with money. Not everyone can or wants to immediately attend university when they're switching careers. It's time consuming and expensive. So again, the example I'm showing you with the software engineer here is just an example, but that's why it's important to look at these descriptions so that you can understand realistically what you need to get your foot in the door here. So what kind of compromises are you willing to make? Can you move to a bigger city? Are you willing to work hours that may not be the traditional 9 to 5? If you can't do those things because perhaps you have a family and a mortgage, that's fine, but you'll have to focus on other ways to get around that, which is the perfect segue into some of the things you can start doing to make that switch. So do you know of anyone working for a company who knows someone in the department that hires in the field that you're interested in? Even if they don't know them well, they may be able to put together a LinkedIn Connect for you. Just like a little informal email intro is fine too. Nothing major. Anyone is fair game. The reason why I say anyone is fair game is because even if your friend or family member or someone you went to school with, they don't work in that particular field that you're interested in, companies have organization charts where you can go in and you can look up someone's name and their job title so you can see who works where, and then you can reach out to them and see if they would be interested in making that connection. Start thinking about this as soon as you decide to make that career change. I'm going to be completely honest with you here. 9 out of 10 of the times, you're going to get ghosted. But that's the worst thing that can happen is someone could either say no or they ghost you. Most of the time, they're going to ghost you if you're asking for some type of reference or connection when it comes to trying to reach out to someone in a field that you're trying to get into. The reason why they're ghosting you is A, they don't know you enough to care, and B, people are very protective of their reputations. So here's what you can do. Before you reach out to your friend or your family member to help you make a connection, make sure you have their questions answered. Make sure you provide them with as much information as possible. So what this means is that you'll want to let the person who you are asking to make that connection, you'll want to let them know what you're going to be asking and how much of that person's time you plan to take up. So provide a list of questions. I would start with just a couple, nothing too crazy, and make sure you're honest with how much time you're going to take up. So is it just one email with 2 questions, Are you looking for more of a back and forth? Make sure you're very honest and upfront about that. Also, try to make the questions as specific as possible. You could say, hey, I checked out on Gus's LinkedIn that he worked on X project. That's something I'm interested in doing, and I just had two questions for him about it. I see that he's on LinkedIn, but I don't have that connection. Would you be able to make an informal introduction? And that way I can ask him a couple of questions about his project. Something like that. Like I said, you may very well get ghosted, but it doesn't hurt to try. Someone will bite, so keep at it. And even if they don't answer all of your questions, it's more information than you had before you reached out to them. So you can build on that as you move forward. Next, you want to start checking out some online classes like Udemy or Coursera. You'll be able to develop some skills that you'll be able to add to your LinkedIn profile. What I like about these courses is that they're cheaper than going to university or boot camp. And since you're still figuring out if this is the right career move, you don't want to do something like get yourself wrapped up in a 4-year program or get yourself wrapped up in an expensive boot camp course that you're spending money on or you've already spent money on and now you find out you don't like it and you're stuck. These courses give you an opportunity, start with a high level overview, and then you can start branching off and digging into the specific programs that you're interested in. So for example, I saw a course called Software Engineering 101 and it was $18.99. Great price point. It got a lot of good reviews and it's a good start. I saw that on Udemy. Now look, will taking one or a few of these courses get you a job as a software engineer? Absolutely not. But the goal is for you to start learning about the basics of it, understanding what programs you'll need to dig into more and what it's going to require to get to that next level so that you can become a software engineer. But those courses do provide you with a lot of information as to how to get to the next level. That's what I use for data analytics. Um, and that was my base for SQL. Some people call it SQL, some people call it SQL, but that was my basis for it. And I used Udemy. So once you start gaining knowledge, once you start learning the programs you need to learn, then you can start picking up projects on Fiverr. Then you can start posting those projects to a website of yours or putting together a portfolio, and you can start applying for jobs. And then you can start speaking the jargon in some of these interviews. You may need to take an internship, and that's totally fine too. But that'll give you the opportunity to speak the language of the person who's sitting in front of you to get your foot in the door. So look for free workshops and conferences in your field to start too. Don't pay for anything right now. The free classes, usually in the free ones, they're trying to sell you something or they want information from you, which isn't a bad thing. Look, I've done free webinars and workshops as well. I don't mind a tip for tat as long as everybody's getting something out of it. But with the free workshops and the free conferences, everything's going to be pretty high level, but that's okay. That's still helpful. And see how much information you can gather from those free classes. But like I said, just make sure you don't spend anything right now because you're still researching. The point is, never feel stuck because it's absolutely realistic. And with the job market being as bad as it is, now is the time to learn a new skill anyway. Also, don't be too fixated on career trends. They're changing faster than ever, and you will pull your hair out trying to keep up. Focus more on what you want to do and what makes you jump out of bed in the morning, or at least focus on something that you can tolerate. So jump in, check out what kind of technology is popular right now in the field that you're looking into. Look at different forums and see what people in the career field that you're looking to get into are saying. So check out LinkedIn and check out Reddit. Those are great places to go to find out how people speak and what are the latest tech trends. That's all for now.